everyone, Ben Jones here. Welcome to the Data Literacy video channel. This is the first video in a new series called Resource Reviews, where I'll go over some resources that I think might help you become even more fluent in the language of data. Our first resource is a blog post called Data Memos. It was written by two amazingly talented data designers, Giorgia Lupi of Pentagram, also the co-author of Dear Data, Paolo Ciuccarelli of Northeastern University's Center of Design. Now, they wrote this blog post, this article, and their point is that we can use this as a checklist to stay on track for a more transparent and open future of data visualization, almost like their observations that they've pinned to the top of a list somewhere. So I'll talk about the first two, then the last one, share my thoughts about that, and I'll leave it to you to take it from there and read the rest of them. The first principle they pin is what they title construction, and they help us to remember that data isn't neutral. How it's created and calculated determines its meaning. So they use the example of a COVID death. Well, that could be because COVID caused an otherwise healthy person's death, or it could be that the person who is dying of other causes happened to have COVID at the time of their death. And so, those might be two very different things, even though they find their way into the same spreadsheet, the same column, and so forth. So sometimes we need to think about that. Their second observation is about proportions, and sometimes it's actually more interesting and more relevant to look at the ratio between data points than the absolute values themselves. That made me think about Our World in Data's COVID-19 Data Explorer. If we look at the daily number of confirmed cases, a 7-day rolling average, we see a huge spike in confirmed cases in the United States in January 2022. That was when Omicron was spreading all around the world. But if we check that little box up top relative to population, it changes. We see that its spike drops down when considered from a cases per million people. It's actually a lot smaller than the spike experienced by France or certainly Israel. And so the number versus the percent, that can sometimes be a very different story. The last one, I think in some ways is the most important. They call it humanity. And they stress that to truly connect numbers to what they stand for, data visualization should acknowledge and even accentuate the inherent human component. And that's so true with COVID-19 data. We've been talking about deaths all along. Well, those people who died were someone's mother or father or brother, a coworker, a friend, a sibling. So, I think back to the New York Times and the way they tried to handle that to really put humanity back into the picture here instead of just having them be cold, hard statistics. So when the US crossed over the 100,000 death mark, they published the names of every single person on their front page. Then when there was 500,000 deaths, that changed to some dots. This last May 2022, when the US crossed over 1 million deaths, they created this series of dots, that gradually expand and expand. Here in this interactive, you can see where it fills the screen with 1 million dots along with some of their commentary to go along with it. So it's just so important, for us to remember that when we're working with data, especially data that involves people, pain and suffering and death, that we need to acknowledge and pay homage to that and bring the human side of that story into the picture as much as we can. Okay, so I presented 3 of the 12. I'll leave it to you to take a look at the other 9. They're all really valuable. Now, I'd like to end where they end, which is with a pledge to take these into consideration going forward in your future work. I'd recommend you do that. I'm certainly going to try to as well. Okay, look for more resources to come soon. Take care, everyone, and have a great day. Best of luck speaking the language of data. Bye for now.